How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Riley's Redzone, and we're back with another weekly edition of NFL Picks. And today we're going to continue in this series as I select my picks for who I think wins every game this week, as well as we do have a guest picker in Rob who gave me his selections for the week as well. So if you're new to the channel, every single week I upload a video in which I select who I think will win each game in the NFL that week straight up. I will mention spreads to talk about who is maybe favored in the matchup, but in the end it's just going to be who wins the game. So to recap how things have gone so far this season, this past week was a good one for me. Went 12-4. The guest picker Cody went 10-6, making me on the season 23-9 so far, and Cody 10-6 in the overall standings. And Rob will look to etch his name towards the top of that leaderboard as well. And so, as it has been over the last few weeks, this video is just coming out on Sunday. We did make our picks for the Thursday game earlier in the week. We both did go with the Bills, which turned out to be a good choice. As mentioned in prior episodes, at some point the graphics may come back, but for now we're just rolling every week with who I think will win the game verbally. So, we're starting the games today, and I'm going to start out with a game that, for me, is perhaps a shocker. The Colts and the Titans. Colts have been doing really, really well this season, whether it was the Week 1 dominance, and then they're able to squeak out with a dub last week. Indianapolis has been good with Daniel Jones. They're taking on the Tennessee Titans, who have a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. I've talked about the fact that I don't think the roster around him is quite ready, so you can't overreact on anything. But today, I'm going to take an upset pick here. I'm taking Tennessee to win this matchup. They're currently favored is the Colts by 5.5 points or so, give or take 5 points. So I'm going to go with the Titans. Rob is going with the favorite in the Colts. So that's already my first upset of the week. Really, I was looking at it. This is one of those feeling ones. I usually kind of go to formula, but you got to take some swings if you want to go perfect, because it's not likely it's going to be all favorites. So I am taking a chance on that one, but perhaps a bold one. Falcons, Panthers in this one. We got two NFC South teams, and the Falcons, they were able to get that win over Minnesota last week, and obviously the Vikings did not look the best in that matchup. I do think the Falcons are pretty good this season, probably looking at a potential wild card team. The Panthers, I think, just need a little bit more time, and you've seen flashes from Bryce Young, but it's going to take still more time for everybody to develop. For 4.5 point favorites, I'm taking the Falcons here. So is Rob, and so we're both going with that matchup there. Meanwhile, the Raiders and the Commanders, I'm looking at the odds at the moment, and it's very interesting that it is a lot closer than you might expect because of the fact that Jaden Daniels is not going to be the quarterback for Washington. It's going to be Marcus Mariota. He's back in the lineup. There's a lot of throwback quarterbacks this week, and that's one of them. The Raiders really, really struggled last week, and so I think it's going to be what type of team are they? With no Daniels, I think this could open the door, but I'm going to stick with Washington, who is just ever so slightly favored, as they are favored by about 3, but you consider that the home team usually gets that pretty much, and so with that, they are thinking that this is going to be a pretty close game. I imagine it could be. If the Raiders wanted a chance to bounce back, today is probably a day for them as they take on a team with their backup quarterback. Green Bay and Cleveland. The Packers are looking like one of the best teams in the league right now, and that's just plain to say. And the Browns, I think, are more so on the end that they might be looking at what those rookie quarterbacks have in the tank, and so I think there's no reason to go against the Packers here. They're favored by 7.5. I'll take Green Bay. Rob's going to go with Green Bay as well. That's one of his favorite team, really, and so he's going to stick with his team there and go with the Packers. Meanwhile, the Bengals and the Vikings. This is definitely another one that is affected by quarterbacks, and it's also practically an even game. Currently, the Vikings are favored by about 3. We're going to have Jake Browning for the Bengals. Joe Burrow's out an extended period of time. I think that you give Browning a little bit, and you might not even need a trade for a quarterback. If he plays well, that's going to be interesting to watch, whether they need to make a move or not, because the Bengals, with the other offensive supporting cast you have, a.k.a. Jamar Chase for sure, you know that you might be in contention if you were to play well. You need the defense to step up also. But this is still, they're in that window right now that they might want to take advantage of it. The Vikings did not look great last week against the Falcons, and with J.J. McCarthy not doing great, that was a huge piece of it. but now they are going to have Carson Wentz this week against the Bengals. They are at home, and I'm going to go with Minnesota, but I think it's just because if we're taking two backup quarterbacks, I'll take the better roster in the Vikings, despite some other injuries as well. And so I definitely think that this is going to be an even game, but I'll take Minnesota in this one. So Rob is going to go with the Bengals, which is considered an upset pick this week, but that game should have an interesting result. Meanwhile, if we go further into the week, we have the Rams and the Eagles in a very good matchup. These are two legit teams. We're looking at two teams that I think the Rams are definitely looking at the NFC West contention, as well as potentially playoff and trying to reach farther. I mean, I have conversations with people, I mean, Matthew Stafford is towards the top of NFC quarterbacks right now. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, they have Jalen Hurts, and the team is rolling so far this season, so I don't really have a reason to doubt them up to this point. And so as slight favorites, I'm going to go with the Eagles here. So is Rob in that one. Steelers and Patriots. The Steelers had a good week one performance, in my opinion, against the Jets, and then it wasn't quite as strong last week. But they take on the Patriots, who you expect to take a step up this year. And I don't think they've been quite that so far this season, but they certainly have the flashes with Drake May. I'm going to trust the Pittsburgh defense here and Aaron Rodgers to get it done. I know I did that last week, but I'll take the Steelers here. They're favored by 1.5, so this is another close one. Rob's sticking with it also, but that should be a close one to watch. The Jets and the Bucks. Another quarterback situation, right? No Justin Fields, so they're going with Tyrod Taylor for the New York Jets. The Bucks I really, really like as a team. I thought that was a gritty win last week for Baker Mayfield and the squad, and I'm going to roll with them this week. Now, watch out, because I think the Jets could be sneaky here, but 6.5-point favorites, I'll take Tampa Bay in this matchup to get another dub. The Texans and the Jaguars. This one, I think, is a little fascinating. The Texans, a few years ago, with Stroud's rookie season, Will Anderson, they burst on the scene, and it feels like, okay, now we've got another contender in the AFC to rival the Mahomes, the Burrow, Allen, Jackson, all of that. And then it felt like they weren't quite the same last year, and they're off to a slow start this season. But I am shocked that despite all of that, they are now underdogs against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think with Trevor Lawrence need to still rebound a little bit. So I am going to take the upset pick here and go with the Texans, and I've fallen for this quite a bit that I think they're finally going to break loose with it, and they haven't, but I like going with the Texans here in this matchup, and so does Rob. We're both going with that upset pick on the road, Houston getting back in the win column for them. Now, Broncos-Chargers, projected to be practically an even game at the moment as the Chargers are favored by 3 at home. Denver is in a similar conversation to Houston for me, where we were impressed with Bo Nix last year. They make the postseason, and I was kind of expecting a good showing going into this year, and then we haven't quite gotten that, I would say, up to this point. Meanwhile, the Chargers have looked electric. They've looked like a very, very solid football team who has played well up to this point. It's a divisional game. I think it's going to be tooth and nail on this matchup. I'm going with the upset pick in Denver to finally bounce back. So that's a trend in my last two picks. Rob is going with the Chargers in that one, which makes a lot of sense. They've been playing like the better team this season, but I think a little bit of bounce back will be there for the Broncos. Saints and Seahawks, I got to give credit. The Saints are performing at least a little better than I thought they would, specifically Spencer Rattler. Definitely something to keep an eye out on this season as he continues to potentially progress. But I'm going to go with Seattle at home. They're favored by a touchdown, which maybe is fair, maybe a little hefty, but they are indeed favored at home, and I'll go with Sam Darnold and them to get a win in that matchup. Cowboys-Bears. This is a tricky one for me. I think the Cowboys have played pretty good football over these last few weeks. They fought really well against the Eagles, and then that nail-biter of a game against the Giants last week was certainly entertainment. But Chicago just can't quite, after that first week, first half against Minnesota, I thought that, okay, maybe they are really something different this year. And then they just lay an egg last week against Detroit, and I'm thinking we'll get somewhere in the middle of a performance like that against Dallas. They need the offense to really pop off if they want to get this win, and I don't know if I have confidence in them doing that right now. So currently favored are the Cowboys by just a point or so. I'll take Dallas in this matchup, but that could be a fun one. Cardinals Niners. This one is another divisional game. The Cardinals are doing what they usually do, which is take advantage of the early season schedule and perform pretty well. The Niners were able to get a win last week with Mac Jones at quarterback. I am a little bit shocked that the Niners are favored by point and a half or two at the moment. Give me the underdog Cardinals to yet again just keep the hot start going this season in terms of their record. Once again, their competition maybe hasn't been the strongest up to this point, but I like their chances in trying to continue to win games early on with Kyler Murray here. So I'll take them over San Francisco, and that's an upset pick. Rob is going with the 49ers in that matchup, which makes a lot of sense. Let's round it out with the Sunday night game, which is the Chiefs and the Giants. Chiefs are obviously behind the eight ball this season, and I think that they are definitely bound to bounce back here. It's a tough one too, where the Giants are record-wise behind the eight ball, but you loved what you saw for the most part out of Russell Wilson last week. Obviously, the end, you don't want to see that turnover, but they overall, I mean, he had his career-high passing yards. That's ridiculous. I think it will be interesting to see if Jackson Dart does come into the picture a little bit quicker than we could have maybe thought, but for now, I'm going to go with Kansas City. They're favored by about 6, and I'll stick with that. Rob does too. And round it out, the Lions and the Ravens. The Lions, week 1, looked nothing like their last season selves. Then last week, they poured it on over Chicago. The Ravens, just to me, are in general one of the better teams in the league. Despite that week 1 nail-biting loss to Buffalo, I think they're in the top 5 of teams right now, and so give me the Ravens to go ahead and win that one. They're favored by 4.5. If the Lions are like last year, it obviously could be a little bit closer, but for now, I'm going to go with Baltimore in that one. So that will do it for this week's NFL picks. Thank you so much for watching this video. Greatly appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another guest picks. Might have the picker in person, but we will be back with another video guaranteed. So hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next episode.